All right. So I had an idea, and we're gonna look at it. I thought I would look at every tournament streak that was at least three icons in a row. And I was sort of inspired because Tezuka just had this really impressive run where he made six icons in a row. This has only been done. I had miscounted before. I thought it had only been done once before in the history of TTA. It had been done twice before. It's pretty remarkable. So I decided to look at all three plus icon streaks and rank them. So for a streak to count, there must have been three consecutive icons. All of those icons must have involved at least two wins. We consider this the anti-SirSmokes rule. If you got your consecutive icons going 1-1 with an activity win or two, not counting it. Must have at least two wins on each icon involved. Now, if you had a four tournament streak and one in the middle happened to be that, I won't hold that against you. I'm just going to skip it. So, for instance, Smokes does have a four tournament streak that becomes a three tournament streak because I exclude that icon. The streaks can be either chronologically consecutive tournaments. That doesn't mean they have to be the three tournaments that happened in a row. If you didn't play a tournament, that's okay. But three tournaments that a given player played in a row chronologically, or three tournaments in a row of the same type. For instance, we will see someone here who played three Rhinoas in a row, someone here who played three Triad Wars in a row, and I think there's one other of that type we'll see, but now I've forgotten. But it could be three SEs in a row, three site championships in a row, right? Something like that. However, if there are two possible streaks that makes, say you could have a tournament that could be part of a three in a row streak or a three TTAC in a row streak, I'm only letting a tournament count for one of those. So you're not going to get credit for two streaks if they overlap. I'm going to pick whichever one was better, more impressive, and give the credit for that one. So once with all this considered, I counted a grand total of 25 streaks. This is to say, like, there have been 60 tournaments won, but there have only been 25 streaks like this. That doesn't mean there are 60 tournament winners, but this is a more exclusive club than tournament winners. It is very impressive to be here. That doesn't mean it's better, right? Just because something is more exclusive doesn't mean it's better. But it is to say this is a very impressive achievement. It is very rare to get three icons in a row. Great Sephiroth never got three icons in a row, no matter how I tried to count it. And Great Sephiroth has like the fifth best career of anyone ever, right? So this is not to say people who aren't on this list aren't incredible, but it is to say every run on this list is really, really impressive, and placing 25th here is still really damn good. Evaluation metrics. So I'm going to give some scores that we use to rank them. One is how many wins and losses did you get? What was your win percentage during the streak? Another is how far did you go, right? If someone went QF, 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 and someone else went finals, wins, semifinals, like the three quarterfinals in a row is probably going to be less impressive. How long did the streak last, right? We only have three players who have ever reached a streak of six consecutive icons. Uh, we'll come back to that a bit more. Strength of opponents. This was a metric I made. I've used it before. I take each of your opponents that were rated above 2,000, meaning there are lots of good players under 2,000, but in general, this is saying how much strength did you beat above strong players. 2,000 is in general strong, 2,100 is very strong, 2,200 is usually the level where you mostly only see winners or really elite non-winners. 2,300 is where you start to only see elite winners, and 2,400 is where you only start to see the best four or five players of all time. So you're getting credited by take each person you beat, what was their score above 2,000 at the time you played them. So this does adjust for when you played them. You know, if you beat me in my first tournament, you don't get credit. If you beat me in my fifth tournament, you get a bunch of credit, right? And so this also does a nice adjustment for like it might look like someone beat a murderer's row, but actually no one they beat was in remotely good form. This will adjust for that. It might look like you didn't beat players that were that great, but actually they were all having the best runs of their lives, and it is really impressive, right? So I think it does a useful measure of that. On the other hand, it inflates over time. Elo goes up over time for a bunch of reasons, but specifically it does here in Triple Triad. That may have stopped now, but as long as new players were joining the site, it was going to cause rating inflation. And so earlier scores are better because they're more deflated scores. So if someone gets a really high score there early on, that's incredibly impressive. So I gave the following list of stats to Turdz and Reye, and they each ranked them. I averaged their ranks. If you think someone is horribly ranked, and I'm certainly going to criticize their rankings because we have let's say friendly enemyship here. Please yell at them, not at me. When two streaks were tied for a spot, if someone gave someone 8th and 11th, and the other gave, or 8th, and one gave 11th, and one gave someone else 10th, and the other 9th, that averages to 8.5 rank for each. I tie broke in favor of whoever Turdz ranked as the better player. I ranked higher because Turdz put the effort in to make a spreadsheet when doing his rankings, and Reye did not. Is this a good reason? Probably not. But those are the metrics we came in with. All metrics will be available to you as well, including a list of the opponents they beat and the players they lost to. So you can, if you want, come up with your own list, and I'm sure that will be a better list than these two schmucks came up with. Some feats, just some impressive things to look out for. We have these 25 total streaks of 3+ icons. Of those 25 streaks, only 8 of the 25 made it to 4 icons, so under a third made it to 4 consecutive icons. Just over half of those, 5, made it to 5 icons, and just over half of that made it to 6 icons. Which is to say, of the 3 icon streaks, it's really unlikely to get to 4. But once you know someone has made 4 icons in a row, they're just clearly an icon machine, and they have a higher chance to make it further. But no one has made it past 6 icons in a row. This is the limit of what has been achieved. There are 3 streaks that include 4 semifinals. There are 4 streaks that include 3 or more finals, and 1 streak that includes 4 finals. There are of these streaks, only 2 of them involve multiple titles. There are 11 streaks that include 15 plus 1 tournament games, and 2 streaks here with 20 plus wins. Again, just because something counts as a streak here does not mean it's someone's actual peak, right? It could be that someone's peak, they won a tournament, finaled another, then went out round 1, then won another tournament, finaled another. That's really impressive, but it never involves 3 icons in a row. We're selecting a sort of weird group, but I think it's a fun project. There were 4 streaks with a 90% plus win rate. There were 10 streaks of the 25 where during the streak they only lost games to tournament winners during the streak. And there were 5 streaks that by my ELO score had a score of 1500, and 2 streaks that had a score of greater than 2000. And so let's look at some streaks. In 25th, we have the thoroughly embarrassing Kamikaze. This is not the case. Actually, he did this in, I believe, either the first 3 tournaments ever or 3 of the first 4. This is easily the first time it's done. He did it immediately. This is, of course, not Kamikaze's peak. He peaked when he was winning TTAC or when he was winning Squall many years later, but it is the time he achieved 3 icons in a row. You can see the players he beat included Bren, but this is before Bren got really good. Soaps was very strong then. The numbers are lower then, but the plus 294 is going to be the lowest score we're going to see on the ELO beaten rating, and that's partially because these were in general weaker opponents than we'll see later, but also everyone's ELO didn't have time yet to reach where it would land. So this might have earned a higher rating later. We can see Soaps as a player that beat Kamikaze. I think Soaps, Sphere, and Aurora were all very, very good. And Bren might have been good at this point, but we only see it in the tournament record later when he has a really nice run a bit later on. In 24th, we have Dreamvirus going 10-3. I think he also quarterfinaled his first 3 tournaments, though this happened a bit later. You can see 2004-05. He beat someone named Sephiroth, but it was not the Sephiroth who had a good run later, so I changed the name slightly. Also beat Seto during this run, though this was before Seto had started winning everything. And really impressive 3 players to have lost to. So beat some very good players and only lost to the kind of absolute best players of 2004 and 5. So I think this is a really good run. I think the plus 342 kind of understates it a bit. On the other hand, the other runs we're going to see are probably even better. In 23rd, we have D, slightly better win rate and wins. By this count, much better opponents beaten. And if you look at the wins, you see Seif twice, so this is before Seif got really good. Kefka, Gambit X, Foyer, Flare, or, it's a very solid field. I think I'd actually have the Dreamvirus run as a little more impressive, just eyeballing it, based on when these opponents were played. And I think that it scores so much higher on the ELO beaten scale is something of a measure of rating inflation between 2004-5 and 2007. But obviously, you look at this, made it further in tournaments, 2 semifinals, more wins overall, more ELO beaten. The losses are to Seto and Deli. Like, what are you gonna do? This is another great run. All these runs are great. I'm just gonna be very repetitive this video. In 22nd, we have Grat, who also went 11-3, but scores slightly higher on opponents beaten. I think I'd have this one lower. I think you look at who the losses are, Meta Coops and Kazdon. That's very good, but it's not as good as Seto, Delial, and Keith Atkinson, right? So I think I'd edge towards D slightly above Grat here, but the Grat scores look a tiny bit higher across the board, and it is at the same time, so we can't complain about rating inflation here. But I would say, and the win against Kamikaze, really good, really impressive there. But I think I'd lean D here. I'd flip these two. They scored very close. In 21st, we have Piggyman with a quarterfinals, and finals. An 8-3 record. Tournaments are shorter at this point in time. But at the same time, you look at who the wins are against, and you see Wazzup's pretty good. Slash of Time, SirSmokes. This is against a very strong modern field. And also, one thing to note, this is the only still active 3-icon streak. So if Piggy were to play another tournament someday, and were to get another icon, he could easily move up on this streak. Very nice streak. I think these 3 last streaks we've seen are pretty close, but making a finals is certainly worth a lot, and the finals was the toughest field of any he played. In 20th, we have Turdz. This is our first streak that won a tournament. There was some disagreement between the rankers. Turdz had this ranked significantly higher than Reye did. Now, we might shout bias, but we also might say winning a tournament is really good. This is the first streak we've seen with an over 80% win rate. Vialva and Tezuka are clearly the strongest opponents. The losses are to Raceland and Delial. They might both be losses in closed, though I think the Raceland lost was in open, and the finals loss to Delial was in closed in a SE Onion Night. I did not separate out open and closed for this. We will see, it will be visible at some point what tournament format some things were, but in general, I counted all that as the same. We have Turdz in 20th. In 19th, we have Yojimbo. And you might think this is very low for Yojimbo, but it's also Yojimbo in 2008. We will see Yojimbo again on this list. This is basically Yojimbo's first really impressive tournament run, and it's already a finals and 2 quarterfinals. Really good opponents beaten. This is before MC was great, but Kona is great and Delial is great. This is those two quite close to the height of their powers, along with some other good players like Ore, really good. You'll also notice, as would be a pattern of Yojimbo, Great Sephiroth and D are the only opponents to put up solid plus scores against Yojimbo. They're the only 2 players. Others have put up an even score or a slight plus, but these are the only 2 that put up substantial pluses against him. And, they got in early before Yojimbo was the monster he would become. On the other hand, 19th on this list is very good already. All right, 18th, we have Chicony. We have a run with no titles, but 3 deep runs. Really strong opponents beaten. Kazdon is, I bring him up a bunch, but very good tournament player. Jadat Nore as well, Roseman as well. Honestly, this whole field's really good. This is Seif past his prime, but Slash of Time did win a tournament around now. And the losses are, of course, only to very top-tier players. I would probably rank this one a little worse on the list than this, but you can clearly see the argument that it should be here and potentially even higher because the level of opposition is very strong. And you can see that in the plus 921 score, which despite having fewer wins than a bunch of streaks we've seen, is the highest ELO beaten score yet. In 17th, we have Tezuka. Now, Tezuka, incredibly controversial placing. One of them had him much higher, one had him lower. This was the biggest split of the rankings. We see 5 quarterfinals and a win, a 17-6 record. That's one of the lower win rates we'll see, but of course, the other win rates are higher because there are only 3 tournaments. The streak stopped, right? If they get round 1 or round 2 in the next tournament, that doesn't hurt their win rate. The longer a tournament streak is going to be, on average, the lower win rate it'll be. And so Tezuka's win rate to here to me is very, very impressive. It is also the first score above 1,000 on our ELO beaten, and it's well above 1,000 if you've been paying attention to that metric. If you look at the wins, I think Chicony, Piggyman, notably those were both in the same run, as well as Aesula, a win against Akiyama, another win against Aesula, as well as some very other solid players here, is a really good run. Also, if you look at the losses, there's some suspicious stuff around Triad Freak, so maybe it should be 17-5, and 17-5 starts to get it up to look more like 77%. And yeah, honestly, I think Tezuka should be comfortably higher here, and we can all blame whichever of the rankers got this one deeply wrong. I was inspired to do this list because Tezuka's run was so impressive. It was, in general, in shorter tournaments, but again, it's a 6 tournament run. Like, we've been having shorter tournaments for a while, and this is, of the 3 runs, I guess 2 are later on in the site, but like, it's not like we're suddenly seeing these 5-4 tournament runs all the time. Most of the long runs are from earlier. So anyway, I think this is a really impressive run. I would have it ranked better on the list. Deep shame on our rankers. This is one of the great runs. Again, there have only been 3 6-tournament runs. In 16th, we have Akiyama with his 3 straight finals. This is the first time we're doing a non-strictly chronological streak. We're doing the Triad Wars streak. Notably, we are playing Triad Wars 15 now. So I lied earlier when I said Piggyman's was the only active streak. Akiyama's streak is still active. This was Triad Wars 12 through 14. Presuming he wins his second round, which is not yet up as I record this, but maybe up or even finished by the time this goes up. But I'm probably going to release this fairly soon to when I record it. He could easily win one more game, and this streak extends to 4, and he has a very good chance to go deep. In the quarterfinals, I forget who he's likely to play against. If you just go by names, I think obviously upsets happen, but I think in the quarterfinals he is likely to play Vid, and in the semifinals he is likely to play either myself, Delial, SirSmokes, or Dalamar. And in the finals, of course, there are lots of players he could end up against. But depending on how far he gets against that field, very possible he gets a 4th straight finals here and could deserve to move up. You may also notice this is our second 1,000+ score for opponents beaten, with wins against, I guess the Seto win is really the standout here. Probably the second best win is to Chicony. And then you could argue a bit over who's third. I would think at this point in time, the point when it happened, it's probably Aesula. Losses are to Yojimbo, Triad Freak, and Wazzup. Again, Triad Freak losses, there's a little suspicion there, so I would say this is a very strong field of people to have lost to. In 15th, we have Yojimbo's second appearance. There will only be 2 players to ever have 2 3-tournament icon streaks, and Yojimbo is one of them. You won't have to think very hard to guess who the other is. But there are only 2 to have ever done it. Yojimbo is the first to make our list twice, with a semifinals, a win, and a quarterfinal. He goes 15-3 here for 83%. There's a goofy pattern we're going to see where Yojimbo's going to go 15-3 more than once. He breaks 1,000 in ELO beaten. He did this in 2013. He has wins versus various players. This is the first time we can see tournaments from Team Rhinoas. So anytime there's a slash, it means he lost to that team. So he lost to Omni Slash and Cliff, or he beat Omni Slash and Cliff. He beat him and his team, beat Chicony and Great Sephiroth, and he lost to Vialva and Metis as a team. Yeah, a really good streak. Obviously, some big wins here. I think this is more steadily good opposition than clearly outstanding, but obviously there is outstanding here. We have Delial, we have young Akiyama, and we have Chicony Great Sephiroth. And also, big congrats to making the list twice. I will say in advance, I don't make this list twice. You know, Great Sephiroth doesn't make this list once. Really hard to make this list multiple times. In 14th, we have Vid with 2 semifinals followed by a win, going 14-3, breaking 80%. Well over 1,000 in ELO beaten. Also in the 2012-13 era, you can check out the wins and losses. Nightwish, Delial. Yeah, it's a good field. I'm just, going to start repeating the same names at some point, but very strong field. 13th, we have Slash of Time. This is another themed entry. This is 3 Rhinoas in a row with a semifinal, a quarterfinal, and a win. He goes 10-2, plus 1106. You can look at a lot of those teams involving players like Great Sephiroth, Yojimbo, Kona, beating Vid at the end. You'll notice that one's alone, but that's because it's the win, and he had to beat his teammate at the end. And losses to a Nightwish and Yojimbo team. This is very fitting because very clearly the 3 best Team Rhinoa players of all time are Slash, Nightwish, and Yojimbo. And so I think a history where you can see he beat a Yojimbo team, he beat 2 Yojimbo teams, he lost to a Yojimbo team, he lost to a Nightwish team. He doesn't have any Nightwish team wins here, but that's going to happen. But you can see the great 3 team tournament players all facing each other regularly because they all went so deep so often. In 12th place, we have Delial. This is our second 6-tournament streak. Again, very arguably should be higher because this has been done so rarely. I think I would have ranked these a bit higher. It's a little bit in the late period, so tournaments are a little bit shorter, but you'll also notice there's 3 semifinals and a win during this run. It's not like this was going out early in these tournaments, The losses we can see, a SirSmokes Nightwish team, a lot of great players. Zoom was in closed. Zoom is an elite closed player. Some big wins here. Yojimbo in a tournament finals. D. Shout out to Patriot, who's also doing incredibly well these days. I don't think I've mentioned him before. Win against Turdz. I don't think anyone's had a win against Turdz on their streak so far. Selder is actually... Spoilers, Turdz has picked Selder to go very deep in the current Triad Wars 15. Yeah, another 6-tournament streak. I'd be inclined to put these all a bit higher. Okay, in 11th place, we have MC. We have our first 5-tournament streak. Fittingly, the only 2 players with exactly 5 tournament streaks are MC and Nightwish, the 2 brothers. That's a little bit of a spoiler that Nightwish will be showing up. Also, this is almost our first player to break 1,500 in ELO beaten. 16-4 is a tremendous record. And there was a tournament where he went out on activity after making the quarterfinals. That was that 4th tournament there, the 2nd quarterfinals listed. I don't know what to do with that. Because if you go out by activity, it is guaranteed that you only get wins for the tournament and not losses. And so that helps your win percentage. It helps some stats. It does cut your chance to pick up ELO beaten, but it does help some things. I should say for ELO beaten, one thing you could do if you wanted to was look, okay, it's plus approximately 1,500, but it is over 5 tournaments, so it's like plus 300 per tournament. If someone else put up plus 900 over 3 tournaments, that's about the same strength beaten per tournament. On the other hand, we do want to credit longer runs, so I do like showing it this way where you see the total. Interesting to see Spike Spiegel still playing a tournament this late. Spike was a great early player who also showed up occasionally late and was quite good late as well. Just trying to mostly mention players I haven't mentioned so much. Yeah, so MC gets 11th and we reach our top 10. In 10th, we have Yojimbo, his 3rd time on the list. He's the only player to appear on the list 3 times. We've seen him in 2013. We've seen him in 2008. Now we see him in between in 2010-11. And again, going 15-3 for the 2nd time with quarterfinals, win, and finals, plus 1459 beaten. We can see this largely based on really dominant Rhinoa runs. We can see that from the slashes indicated here. I get a win against him during this run. Go me. This was probably around when I was playing the best. And, but yeah, you can see, as always, a bunch of huge wins. Nice to see a win against Sujiro. Sujiro came back to finals TTAC and played a couple tournaments. Yojimbo rudely knocked him out. Yeah. In ninth place, we have Seif. So Seif's run is really incredible because Seif is this player who is perennially like going out round one, round two, never making icons, clearly like a perfectly reasonable player, but never making a mark on tournaments. And then in late 2008, early 2009, they had this three tournament run where they make three semifinals. And this is in the era of 6 round tournaments mostly. Goes 13 and 2, 87%. I think that's just clearly the highest win percentage we've seen so far. Over 1,000 in rating beaten, despite this being before heavy inflation hits. Beats both myself and Delial. Also, we're the only ones to beat him during this run, but beats us both. Beats Great Sephiroth, beats Cookie, beats Doomtrain, beats Kaus Debonair, beats Kazik, a bunch of names we hadn't seen much yet. Really impressive run. One of the great just 3 tournament runs, and really notable to see from someone who had focused till then mostly on being a clan leader and then just has this unbelievable run as a player that he could never replicate later and never made it to those heights before. But it's one of those runs that, in a lot of ways, Seif does not have an impressive resume for a tournament winner, right? You start ranking the tournament winners, you look at numbers, it's very easy to have them at the bottom or very close to the bottom. And then you look at this run and you're like, wait a second though. And it's pretty hard to place because peak versus like average, his averages are really low for a winner, but his peak is really high. What do you do with that? Never been sure. In eighth, we have SirSmokes. This is his incredible 2013 run, where I think, despite a bunch of other players, Yojimbo, Vid, having really good 2013s, SirSmokes is probably just your player of the year. He goes 12-3 plus 1440 in ELO beaten, only losses to elite players. This is our first asterisk win. And if you ask SirSmokes about this, he will tell you it doesn't count. I lost the title match. I'm not the real champion, because SirSmokes will never miss a chance to denigrate achievement he did. But he had an unbelievable year here. The first person on this list, I think, to have beaten Piggyman during his run. Nightwish wins are very hard to come by. Obviously, Delial wins are always the crown of any run. Yeah, just fantastic run. This is Doomtrain at Doomtrain's peak for both the wins, because this is around when Doomtrain was playing his best and having a really, really good run. Rest in peace. Yeah, Patriot at his peak. These names might not look quite as impressive to you as they are, but almost everyone on the list, except Delial, who peaks, I think, in 2008, but everyone else on the list here is very close to their peak. This is peak Midas. Yeah, this is a tremendous run. And that's why the plus 1440, this is very close, as MC was, to our first run breaking plus 1500 in ELO beaten. In seventh, we have peak Delial in 2007. And he quickly followed this with some other results, but has like a round 2 exit in between, so it ruins our streak for our purposes. But he still goes 12 and 2 in just 3 tournaments, hitting around 1400. This is plus 433 per tournament, which I think is the highest per tournament ELO beaten we've seen. And it's in 2007, which is really early on in the site. So he is beating huge names to get there. He's beating Kaus, he's beating Kamikaze, he's beating Kona, he's beating Kaus again, he's beating D. This is peak D. He's beating Meta twice. This is peak Meta. Like, if not for Delial here, you would hear a lot more about Meta, because he'd have won more tournaments and he'd have made more deep runs, and he would be, if not for Deli, like if Meta wins every time he faces Deli instead of losing every time, Meta is easily in my top 15 players of all time. This list is really strong. The losses are a little weird. Coops and Keith Atkinson, both good players, but a little weird given who he was just crushing here. But I think something interesting, if you start looking at Deli's resume, is all his title wins are the toughest fields he came up against, and his like times he doesn't win a title tend to be against easier fields, which is quite curious. This is also Deli's second time on the list. We won't be seeing him again, but Deli is one of the only 2 players to have multiple entries on this list. and Deli is the only player with multiple entries to include having a 6-icon streak. And if you are higher on 6-icon streaks than my judges were, you could have Delial ranked for both of these runs very, very high indeed. All right, we've got our top 6. Now, both of my judges had the same top 6. They had them in different order. They had the same top 2, but different rankings of 3rd through 6th, but indicating a pretty clear top 6. So you could have Deli higher, but I think the top 6 were pretty clearly supported, with Kona as the consensus best 6-icon in a row run. We have a win as well as 3 other semifinals, 22 and 6. This is not only the first run we'll see with 20 wins, but it is the highest win total we will see over an icon streak with 22 wins. This is also the first time we're seeing over 1,500 ELO beaten. This is extending from the end of 2007 to the start of 2009, where Kona was just grabbing all the most icon records because almost every tournament here earned an icon. Unbelievable run. If we look at the wins, I think it's funny to see Hells and Hellboy next to each other. Hellboy was really good in 2007. Later, we see Cookie, we see Jaws, which is a really tough game. We see Bren, and then we start seeing some even bigger hitters in Kamikaze, Delial, and Kaus, as well as SirSmokes later, Turdz, MC. Because it's MC at the end of this run, MC is starting to get good. This is not... Beating MC early 09 is quite different than beating him in 08. It's not till 2010-11 that you get peak MC, but 2009 MC is really good. So, very impressive streak. Also, if you look at the losses, it's Pogi during his brief but dominant time, and the others are all legends of the game. Kona could have been higher. I think one had him 3rd, and the other had him 6th, or one had him 4th, and the other 6th. No, I think it was 5th and 6th. I think Kona was clear 6th overall, but very impressive run. I think 4th and 5th were tied and had to be broken by my tiebreak rules. We have Nightwish, who has a 5-tournament streak, one of only 2 exactly 5-tournament streaks, along with his brother MC. This one, however, includes a win. It is our first 90% streak. Now, you look at a whole bunch about this, it looks incredible. You could rank Nightwish's run higher. The question is, how much do you lower it for the matches with his brother? You can see in the losses, there are 2 times he was paired with MC. I believe neither time was the game actually played, which means this could have looked even better in terms of how far the icons went, but it also means that's 2 tournaments where he was guaranteed to not have a loss once he reached that point. Should I count it as losing? Because both times, whatever happened, they agreed MC won the match. Maybe something was played, maybe it wasn't. We won't really know. But if he lost those, then it's 18 and 4, and it's not close to 90%. Maybe that's less impressive. If he wins those, it's even better. How much you want to treat the confusion of those matchups really is going to change how you view this. But from what we have to look at, 18 and 2 wins against beating a Delial and Seto team in Rhinoa, beating Delial, beating Kamikaze and Slash again, Slash of Time, unbelievable Rhinoa performer, and only losing to possibly his brother and definitely great Sephiroth. This is a phenomenal run. I think it deserves to be in our top 6 or 7. You could have it. One of our voters had it as high as 3rd. That makes some sense. The other had it 6th. That makes sense too. Really tough run to judge, and I would be very unsurprised if you watching think this one got robbed or this one should be substantially lower. In 4th, we have Seto. Seto has our final streak in a specific tournament type. It's his Triad Wars 4 through 6, where he went finals, win, finals. Actually, I might have screwed up. I think there's a good case I screwed up. Seto did not play Triad Wars 7. And he won Triad Wars 8. I'll have to double check this, but I think I missed that. If he didn't play Triad Wars 7 and he won Triad Wars 8, then this is finals win, finals win. And his Triad Wars 8, as I've talked about in previous videos, is quite possibly the greatest tournament win of all time. So Seto's Triad Wars streak, now I'm not sure For chronological stuff, like if you missed a tournament or two and came back, but for stuff that's like a tournament specifically, like Triad Wars, where there's not that much to separate it from SEs at the time, so it feels a little like cherry picking, do we allow them to miss a tournament? But if you do there, then I think he won the next Triad Wars he played, which makes this a finals win streak. It makes it clearly over 90%. Given that I do think it's probably the best tournament ever won, that's going to jump him well over 2,000 for Elo beaten. There's a good case that Seto should actually be first on this list. I'm not sure. We should all go check. My bad. I'm not going to go re-record this stuff because I've been going for a while and I'm lazy. But Seto got robbed. I screwed this up when I gave information. I think, unless he went out like round 1 and tried where 7 and I forgot about it. But if he didn't play that tournament and we allow for a tournament to be missed during non-chronological streaks, during like specific tournament format streaks, the other two were on the list. Like Slash's Rhinoa is 7 through 9. That's all consecutive. Akiyama's 12 through 14. That's all consecutive. If we can allow him to have skipped 7, and indeed he didn't play 7, which my memory says he didn't, but I'm not sure, then Seto has a very good case for number 1 on the list. He breaks the record for most wins. He sets a very high win percentage. He probably has the highest Elo beaten. But even as is, let's talk about what's here. 18-2, 90% win rate. None of the nonsense like Nightwishes where the games weren't played. This is actually 90%. The only losses are to Virgil and Delial, both players who won those tournaments, because he lost in the finals, so of course they did. Huge wins against early but already incredible Tezuka. This is 2000. I didn't say the date even on these. Oh, that's because it's Triad Wars 4 through 6. But the Cookie match is in 2006, I believe, which is Cookie's peak-ish range. D, Turdz, Seif, Meta. Very strong field. Sachi twice. Gambit X, underrated, very good tournament player. This is an incredible run, and it's possible I robbed Seto, and he should just be... with that win included, I think he would just be first. In third, we have our final sighting of Yojimbo. Not only is he one of the only 2 players to make the list twice, he's the only player to make the list 3 times, and the only player to make the list 4 times, with his third 15-3 streak. This is the only streak with 4 finals, except if I misdid Seto. Seto achieved that as well. Yeah, let's pretend that never happened. We'll just say we're stealing from Seto. That's okay. No one likes Canadians anyway. Over 2,000 Elo beaten. This is one of only 2 runs with over 2,000 Elo beaten. This was in 2014-15 when he just, finaled or won everything. The losses are to Slash of Time, Delial, and Akiyama, who are, somewhat competent players. Note, he also beat during this run Delial, Akiyama twice. Not Slash of Time. Shout out to Slash of Time. SirSmokes a whole bunch. Very strong field. Very strong run. Obviously, now that we know I robbed Seto, or we think I robbed Seto, Yojimbo should probably drop to 4th here, but still, unbelievable run. In second, we have DocEvil. Both rankers agreed on 1st and 2nd and in the same order, but both rankers were also, again, maybe we'll go check Seto's score. I'll leave a note down below. Ooh, I typoed Dreamvirus here. This is the first list with Sujiro beaten, besides in a team tournament by Yojimbo. This has Kamikaze, Grat, Dreamvirus, Sphere, Mafi Josie, C17. Ulti is a multi-time finalist. A lot of the early ratings are low, and a lot of the early players I don't rate as highly as some players do, because they didn't put in the consistent results we see later, even if we adjust for that Elo or lower. But this DocEvil run is beating all the players from the early era that I do think are just clearly that good. It's 18-1. It's the highest win percentage we'll see. Even though Elos are lower than, it's a very high Elo score. This is obviously an absurd run. It's only one of 2, or if I got Seto wrong, 3 runs with multiple tournament wins. It's one of very few runs with 3 finals, possibly just him, Yojimbo, and Seto. Um, yeah, obviously this is the run that has kind of stood the test of time as, oh my god, how could that be done? And you think, okay, maybe it was easy opposition. You look at this field, this is not easy opposition. You know, Diamondback and Gambit X are really good too. Biddy, I didn't mention Biddy. Biddy's great. Uziel, one of the big names of the early days. Like, yeah, it's one of the great runs. And in first, I promise I didn't bribe the people. Apparently, I did screw Seto over, so I did kind of cheat to get myself there, you could say. But I did it totally by accident and noticed it now. I will have to check that after. Again, I'm sorry for screwing this up. For in temporary first, possibly about to be dethroned by Seto, depending. Let's just pretend I said the requirements were it has to be 3 tournaments you played in a row, or if it's 3 tournaments of a type, it has to be like the 3 in a row of that type, because you already got to take breaks between them or not have your other results in between count against you. Let's just say that. Let's pretend I didn't rob Seto. All is good. All is good. 4 tournaments in a row, 2 wins, 2 semifinals, 20-2. This is one of the only 2 streaks we see with over 20 wins. It's also, by quite a decent margin, our highest elo beaten. This is my 2008-9 run. Big wins against Great Sephiroth, Yojimbo, Kona, Peak Seif. This is Peak Seif, not to be confused with non-Peak Seif. Nightwish, Slash of Time, losses to Peak Seif and Slash of Time. No wins to Delial or Seto during this streak, but you know, you can't have everything. A win to Kaus, that was my first really big win that said I was here. Yeah, this is our winner. I did bribe no one. We can all argue over the Seto thing, but that's the list we came up with. These are the 25 streaks. Hope you enjoyed the list, and I had fun putting it together and not having to do the rankings myself.